Huh? Hang on a second, guys. Camera coming for? Hang on a sec. Hey guys, let me play around with the settings a minute. I'll be right back. Let me see if I can get the webcam back on. Well, crap. I don't know why there's no video tonight. The webcam was working just fine recently. It's been that kind of day. Anyway, well, shoot. I guess we'll just do it without video. Um, Welcome to the stream tonight, everybody. It's Dr. Plague. We're just gonna do something. I don't know. We'll read some stories and stuff, I reckon. um, we're gonna power through and see if we can't get. I don't know. It's been a day, guys. I'm tired. We're gonna get some stories though. Don't worry. No, no batteries. It's supposed to be plug and play, but it's neither plugging nor playing. So I don't know. We'll get the. I'll figure it out before next week. See what can be done there, and then we'll get everything running tonight, I guess, with just audio. That's fine. Excuse me. Any rate, if it's your first time on the stream, welcome. We're gonna get 5 great stories, and you'll get to hear some new stuff, and you know, we'll just proceed as we always do. Let's see if we got any new stuff. Susan is fine. For those of you who are worried, thank you. She appreciates that. She hurt her hand the other day. She's doing a lot better. Carter had a tooth removed today, so it's been back and forth all day. But he's doing a lot better, so that's good too. Trying to think if we've. I've been working on a new book that I'm hoping to turn into a. I guess the word is still screenplay. I don't know. I'm planning to maybe pitch it to like Amazon or something. I don't know. It's a kids show, not really, but it's very on brand. Still working on the audiobook for Towsy Homestead. It's coming along pretty good. I'm about halfway through chapter 2 right now, so just kind of chugging along on that. Morgan and Tess went live today. If you guys follow my audiobook stuff. So if you are interested in reading that, I'll send you a link to that. Hang on. Yeah, finally came out. Took them forever to approve it. Yeah, there we go. I'm working on Shadow People right now as well for the same author. So if you like her work or you like listening to me, then that's where to find it. Blondie, I'm gonna throw this up in the Discord. If you could send it around, that would be awesome. Let me get all my stuff back out of the way. Hang on. Put the links up in the Discord so that Blondie can have them. Everybody give Blondie a big old round of applause there. She's been the best moderator. Oh, goodness. But, well, yeah, no, we're doing okay here. We're doing just fine. Oh, just another week. Alrighty. So, let's see. Hi, Lance. Oh, hello to Blondie and Leia and Winter, and Brandy. I think that's everybody. Everybody else must be lurking. But, hello to everyone, and thanks for coming to the stream. We always appreciate it. Let's see. Today, I guess we'll start with our laughing audience story, which is actually going to be a little bit of a rerun that I managed to work in. It's a story that you guys have heard before. It's we had talked briefly on it that Jarrett's Dirge takes place in the Laughing Audience universe. If you guys remember that one. And so that's going to be our story for tonight, along with a little update from Director Hires. So, yeah, we're going to proceed on with that. Tell Ram and Blaze we said hi as well. What do we got here? Oh, yeah, that should be more than enough. Okay. So, tonight's laughing audience story is Jarrett's Dirge. It's an older story, so some of you guys might not remember it. But it's going to be in the laughing audience book as well. So, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully without any more technical difficulties. Yep, mic's still working, so. Alrighty, and away we go. Everything changed the day that Jarrett Ray killed himself. He'd been a YouTube star, an internet darling, and his life had been a TV show since he picked up a guitar. The video of an 8-year-old Jarrett Ray learning his chords was still on his Memories channel. The sight of him playing beside his granddad, the old man smiling and cackling as the young boy devoured his lessons, was tear-jerking. People talked about how you could just tell so-and-so was happy because it was written all over their face. Well, it was true in his case. Bobby Ray, Jarrett's granddad, was truly happy when he watched his grandson play those first halting chords from the chair beside him. He'd tell Jarrett 10 years later, his hands and muscles withered from cancer, that teaching him to play had been his proudest achievement. Police have found another apparent suicide in Little Brine today. This brings the death toll into the thousands, with numbers in the millions expected by the end of day. Leslie looked up from the tea she'd been making and sighed. All this because some stupid tart couldn't tell when she was supposed to be ashamed. Leslie had been watching the reports come in all day. After the video had gone viral, it was all anyone could do to keep up with the death toll. All this over a song, she thought. All this because someone wrote a song. But it was more than a song, of course. He'd won his 5th grade talent show, his 6th grade talent show, and his 7th grade talent show as well. By the time he was in 8th grade, the administration had simply let him close the show. Every year, he wrote a new song just for the occasion, and many of them made their way onto his albums after he was discovered. During the interviews they did for the documentary, his classmates spoke about him with tears in their eyes. They said there would never be anyone like Jarrett ever again, that when Jarrett sang, it was like he was singing just for you. Like he was the only other person. Yeah, that was how that was going. In the world. The numbers are only now starting to solidify. 750,000 deaths worldwide, with another 5 million expected by the end of day. This is a global crisis, and the numbers are only just beginning to come in. Of the nearly 7.5 million people worldwide who watched the video, only those reported dead have been discovered. Which begs the question, when will the others surface? Leslie had to watch the news on her old cable TV. She had turned off the router and the modem hours ago. Leslie couldn't risk Sophia. She'd put the thought out of her head. If she couldn't get her on her tablet, she'd come out here. Blech. If I could read today. If she couldn't get on her tablet, she'd come out here. There would be no reason for her not to. She'd been home with a fever today, so she'd slept through most of the news reports. Some small part of Leslie was glad that she had managed to cloister her. If she had been at school when the video went live, who knew? Jarrett had started his rise to fame as many others did. He recorded himself singing and playing the guitar and posted it to YouTube. He was a moderate success. The people from his hometown pushed his numbers a little, but he never rose above a few thousand views. When they announced YouTube Talent, an invitation for YouTubers to send in their best and try to get discovered, he submitted a video and found the audience he'd been seeking. The adoration he'd found for his music at school was multiplied by 1 billion, and from there the sky was the limit for Jarrett. His music touched people, made them discover things they never knew they'd lost. Leslie could remember fondly when one of his songs would come on the radio at work. For the 2 or 3 minutes that he sang, it was like no one could have a bad day. No one could be in anything less than a fantastic mood, and the world was just a little brighter while he was in it. He was their songbird, but they ultimately took him for granted. Deaths have reached a catastrophic level. 3 million people dead, and somehow the views just keep rising. The death toll is now expected to be somewhere around 250 million before the end, as people go to see what all the fuss is about. News outlets are begging viewers not to indulge their curiosity, as the video has been confirmed to have a nearly 100% kill rate thus far. He met Crystal while guest hosting Saturday Night Live. She had a track record for loving and leaving influencers, breaking their hearts, taking their money if they were dumb enough to marry her. She seemed to have her eyes set on Jarrett. Their love affair was one for the tabloids, a string of fights and makeups and public declarations of love or anger. She wanted to be a musician, it seemed, and even the middling talent she had couldn't pull down his star. She appeared with him on several albums, came on stage with him at concerts, but at the end of the day, it was Jarrett they all came to see, and she knew it and hated it. She was 24 years old, a time bomb who was about to destroy the world with her need for attention. When she left him after 5 years together, the world sighed with relief. They gasped, however, when she accused him of abuse. She had bruises, a very convincing black eye, and an ear from a tabloid writer who told her whole story in glaring prose and glossy pictures. She made the talk show circuit, talking about her harrowing experience and her toxic relationship. Eventually, Jarrett was called upon to defend himself in the court of public opinions. It was crap, he claimed. She had left because she had ultimately gotten everything out of their relationship that she could, other than his name. He was tired of putting up with her tantrums and her public spectacles, and was ready to move on with his life. Their relationship was not a sustainable one, and he was looking for more than someone who made bad press with him. They had drifted apart, and it was time to move on to better things. He was reasonable. He was adult about the whole matter. But people don't want reasonable, not even from a media darling like him. She cried and pouted, while he sat and reasonably explained, and the audience ate their daily dose of drama. We have reports of a group of students on the roof of a high school in Des Moines, unresponsive to verbal commands. They are ignoring police, and oh God, they've jumped. An emergency service worker. Yeah. As emergency services tries to save who they can, we can see more students coming out of the emergency hatch and preparing to join their fellow students. His reputation was ruined. There was never any proof that he had or hadn't hurt Crystal, but she fashioned her story into a lucrative book deal and a successful music career. Jarrett, on the other hand, was damaged goods. He was unbookable, his sales plummeted, and his songs slowly stopped playing on the radio. It seemed that no one wanted to be seen supporting a suspected abuser, and his star had now begun to fall. The 3 years would see him in and out of rehab, falling hard into drug use and depression, and when he came out, he went back to YouTube with something very different. Reports are coming in about a group of men who have set themselves on fire in Kyoto. Their dying is quiet, dignified, and they burn without so much as a whimper, Kyoto authorities say. When he returned, his music wasn't the same. The upbeat, happy songs full of hope were replaced with melancholy ballads full of despair and hopelessness. Someone sent her one of his YouTube links once, and she could swear that you could feel the air being sucked out of the room. He conveyed every ounce of his suffering into his music, and though his views were just as high as they had always been, no one talked about his music now. His song was a monster that was better left under the bed. No one wanted to listen, but their curiosity wouldn't let them look away. We have cell phone footage of 3 men jumping into a cave in Arizona National Park. The cave mouth, usually requiring climbers to rappel down to reach the floor, is nearly a mile deep. Emergency services are still attempting to get the bodies, and 2 members of EMS are said to have also jumped to the bottom. There we go. 2 days ago, he had made his last YouTube video. He finished something haunting, halting, tears streaming down his cheeks as he poured his soul into every note. He played acoustically, and his guitar was not tuned. The jangling melody of his untuned Allergies are super bad today, guys. Sorry. Of his untuned strings was ethereal, almost industrial. As he played, it was like watching some dying animal limp through the forest towards the spot where it will drop. As he came to a close, his voice trailing off painfully, he turned to the camera and thanked the audience. He thanked them for the loyalty, for their time, for the support that they had shown him during his worst moments. He informed the audience that this would be the last time he'd be on YouTube, and wished them all a very happy life. Then he turned his camera off and walked away from life as anyone knew it. He had done it in the bathtub that night. His mother found him with both wrists slit. Though she was horrified, she told someone that he died in the most serene-looking way, stretched out, his face a mask of joy. Whatever he had been thinking about as he ended it all, it had given him such joy that he slipped off with it still in his mind. And so, Jarrett played his final song that night and passed into the annals of history. Well, that's not all he did, Leslie supposed. The death toll swells to 3.5 million as medical services scramble to handle the influx of bodies. His death went mostly unremarked. A small service was held for him, and his body was interred in his hometown. A short squib about him went over social media and on the news circuits. Outside of a handful of fans, though, everyone seemed to be very comfortable to just forget about Jared. His death was sad, of course. The loss of someone so young and so talented is always sad. But people seemed ready to move on and put all this behind them. And they would have, if it hadn't been for Crystal and a voicemail that should have been private. She appeared on Snapchat one night, raccoon-eyed and everything, to tell her fans about a voicemail that had reached her from Jarrett the night that he had done the deed. I was at a charity event when he called, and I completely forgot about it until I saw it tonight in my missed calls. His voicemail lives on as the last words he will ever speak on this earth. He wanted to give me a gift, his last gift, and I think it's only right that I share this last moment with you all. She held the phone up to the microphone, and from it spilled a monotone that no one had ever heard from Jarrett before. "Hello, Crystal. I guess you're too busy to talk to me, so just listen. I've written you a song. Remember when I used to do that? It's just for you, so make sure you don't share it with anyone else. Something you can remember me by after I'm gone." She looked at the camera and sniffed a little as she smudged her makeup for effect. "I'll be playing that song live tomorrow night on Facebook. I haven't even heard it yet, but I just know that all of you will want to hear Jarrett's last song live at 8 p.m. on my page." True to her word, the very next night, she played the song for everyone to hear. Police are again advising people to stay indoors. Close your windows. Do not open the door unless emergency personnel calls you to do so. There is a fear that others might be weaponizing this phenomenon. The song was like nothing, anything. Yeah. Make this a little bigger. My old man eyes are hard to read these days. The song was nothing like anything he had ever heard before. He had left her two messages, it would seem, and the second was a dirge, sung a cappella. It was deep and halting, his voice spilling all the angst and pain that he'd been keeping inside for 3 years. He bled his words for her, and the nearly 20,000 people who watched, and in the end he simply hung up and was ended forever. Crystal cried, of course, and talked about how important he was to her, despite how things had ended. She wished that their relationship could have gone differently, wished they could have spent their lives together, and thanked her fans for experiencing this moment with her. 2 days later, she was dead. Someone has thrown a Molotov cocktail through the door of YouTube's corporate office. The platform claims it is blameless in this, but its failure to act in regards to the video's takedown leads to other questions and thoughts on its negligence. The next 2 days were awash with odd Facebook posts and strange snaps. Ugh. Strange Snapchat stories from Crystal. She claimed there were people in her house. She did a walking tour of her home in which she shouted at things that only she could hear and brandished a knife. She told her fans that she thought Jarrett's ghost was haunting her, trying to get her to kill herself. She had a 2.5-hour video of nothing but her crying on the floor of her closet while she sobbed that people were outside the door, saying that she should drown herself in her pool. It all came to a head on the second day, when she posted her final video. At 11:38 p.m., a staggering and slurring Crystal posted one last video to Snapchat. "I found these pills in my medicine cabinet. They helped me a little, but I can still hear the voices. They're telling me how this is my punishment, how I deserve it. And you know what? They're right. I ruined his career. He never hurt me. I just couldn't stand the idea that he would keep living and loving and being loved by people after I left. I'm a heartless bitch, and I deserve this. They found her in her pool the next day. She was the first casualty, but she was not the last. Mass panic in Singapore. People take to the streets looking for loved ones as the death toll. Leslie heard the door to the back room open as Sophia wandered into the living room. She looked very childlike for a girl of 14, and Leslie was glad for her. Let her be innocent a while longer. She would have to grow up soon enough. Sophia lay her head on her mother's lap, watching the TV with a sense of dread as she took in what was going on. She didn't ask about her phone. Leslie had slipped in and taken both her phone and her tablet while she was asleep. She only lay her head against her lap and watched the news talk about the dead in China and the dead in Russia and the dead right there in her own hometown. As they watched, Leslie continued to listen as a story that only she could hear played again and again in her head. He had learned to play guitar at 8 years old. His grandpa had died of cancer. He was a local celebrity by the time he was 12. Crystal had ruined his life. It ran endlessly, on and on and on. She'd been trying to block it out for the better part of 6 hours, but it just kept going, no matter what Leslie did. Someone had posted the video of Crystal's live stream to YouTube shortly before her death. As of this very second, 600 million people had heard what the media was calling Jarrett's dirge, and Leslie was one of those people. Even as the first reports were coming in, she listened to the song via a Facebook link from her sister, Pam. Pam had sent her a text an hour ago, saying her farewells and wishing her luck. The voices had been rising in frequency, increasing in volume with every repetition. As Leslie stroked her daughter's hair, she began to wonder how long she would last. "He learned to play at 8, you know," Sophia said, and the words sent a chill up Leslie's spine. "What?" Leslie asked, looking down at her as she lay watching the steadily increasing death toll. "His grandfather taught him to play guitar at 8 years old. He told him on his deathbed that it was the proudest moment of his life. Mom, I'm scared. How long is this going to last?" Leslie stroked her hand and felt the clammy touch as it slid over her straight hair. She winced as she realized that she had no answer for her daughter. They were two amongst millions, and they would see how long it took before the dirge had them as well. All right. Director Hires stood before the board of the second largest production studio in the United States. There were 7 of them, 4 men and 3 women, and they all looked to be either bored or mildly upset. One of his agents had cost them close to $1 million, but most of them looked like they had nothing worse going on than a mild case of indigestion. In their world, it was about the money. Ugh. In their world, it wasn't about the money. It was about the inconvenience and the disrespect. "The board has come to understand that you finished your investigation," one of them said after a few minutes of weighted silence. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. Well, that's weird. The chat's usually pretty steady. One thing after another tonight. "I have," Director Hires stated. "And what have you discovered, Director Hires?" "The FBI does not make a habit of sharing its findings with civilians. We've discovered much, however, and I will be returning to Washington. Consider your soundstage. Consider your soundstage reopened. Some of that indignation turned into actual anger as he turned to go. One of the men, a bald, liver-spotted old specimen, brought his geriatric hand down on the tabletop, and Hires was pretty sure he had done more damage to himself than he had the director's pride. Some of the others were grumbling quietly, not quite capable of outright displeasure. I'm telling you guys, it's this day I'm having. It's just one thing after another. Your investigation, an unwanted investigation, I might add, has cost this studio close to $8 million in lost time, lost revenue, and lost staff. What's more, we've lost a studio audience, several very important actors, and now we will need to make amends to the families of both. We would like to know what you intend to do about that. Do? Hires asked, as he turned back to look at the assembled toads. I intend to do nothing. Our investigation is ongoing, but I am done with your sound studio. You can reopen it. You can burn it to the ground. You can do whatever you like with it. It does not interest me any more. Mr. Hires, one of the other men stated, but Hires cut him off with a sweep of his hand. It's Director Hires. I'm the director of the FBI Special Investigation Unit, and I'm not here to answer your questions. The government does not answer questions. The government solves problems. Unless you would like a little more scrutiny put on your studio, I would suggest that you let me board my plane and go back to the Bureau. I've wasted a lot of time here. Unlike your time, my time is very important to the people of this country. He left them grumbling, some of them outright demanding that he come back and do something. Director Hires did not work for these men. In his opinion, he had They had rather too high an opinion of themselves. They believed that their wealth and their prestige made them important, made them untouchable. But men like this always had weak points. They indulge in things that would get them sent to prison. They aren't as good with their taxes as they would have you believe. And they may even be laundering money for people worse than they are. If Director Hires were to... If Director Hires wanted to, he could set quite a few dogs sniffing their back trail. But he didn't have time for all that. Right now, people were continuing to die around the world, and he needed to figure out why. Scratch that. He knew why. He just needed to find out how. The CD in his coat pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds as he walked out of the business office and stuck out his hand to hail a cab. He should have been back in Washington yesterday, but he had to stick around for this asinine meeting with the board of directors. It was an absolute waste of time. They had expected him to fall to his knees and get on his face and tell them how sorry he was that one of his agents had inconvenienced them and set their work back. Given the evidence that Warwick had collected, it was quite possible that he had saved the studio a lot of time and a lot of money in the long run. If that broadcast had gone off, it was very likely that they would be dealing with two such events right now. There was no way of proving that, but Hires felt quite sure that his agent's sacrifice had been to stop what could have been even more catastrophic than Jarrett's dirge. The cab pulled up, and Director Hires climbed into the back as he situated himself. "Where to, buddy?" "Airport, please." "You got it. Hey, did you know that Jarrett first played the guitar when he was..." Director Hires tuned the man down as they rolled towards LAX. The cabbie would be dead in a couple of days. once they started sharing facts about the artist, they were usually dead in about 7 days. He needed to get back to Washington. He needed to figure out what the hell was going on. There you go. That is your laughing audience story for the week. I got you guys a bit of a long one this week. I know some of them have been on the short side, but I figured you guys deserved a longer laughing audience story this time. Oh, we're coming down to it. I've got 2 more already written, and I'm working on the finale, so not much longer now. And then we'll move on to something else on Monday. I don't know. What would you guys like to see on Monday? I keep saying I might do a little poll on it. I don't know. Me personally, I'm thinking about going back to Rayford Woods for a little while. I've got a little bit more of the new Dollar General stuff, but I don't know. Like, I'm hesitant to start another Dollar General Beyond series. I don't know. I like the series. I just don't want to, like... I hate making sequels. They never turn out as good as the first one. But I mean, we've got some wiggle room. I don't want to go back to anything Bright because we've been seeing a lot of Bright in our Wednesday stories lately. So I don't want to like triple down on Bright where some of the other stuff might be concerned. But I don't know. I might do a little poll, see what you guys want to do. We can do some travel writer stories, I guess. We can go back to some Ranger Tales. I've got another series I've been working on that I might debut. I don't know. That one's going to be, it's a little Dollar General Beyond adjacent. So yeah, I don't know. We've got some options though. I'd love to do another Killian Barger story, but I've been having trouble getting in touch with the Baron lately, and I might have to just do it myself. I don't know. Funny you should mention that, Leia. I heard you guys. And the Botanical Gardens is actually our Friday story this week. So there will definitely be a Botanical Gardens story this week. And I'm gonna insert a few more. I know you guys want to hear what I've got for the grandpa stories, but I don't want to roll them all out too quickly. And finish up too soon. I really want to finish the grandpa series sometime around the summer. That way, we have him for a little bit longer. But I've got some stuff in the works. And I think we've got some good stuff. I'm working on I think probably not the coming up week, next week, but the week after next will be a grandpa story. And I'm working on some Stragview stuff. Just kind of working on some things. We got a lot of stuff in the works. I guess next we'll do our laughing audience story. And this one is, if you guys remember from last time, Mr. Seraph ran afoul of the Bright and kind of got his ass kicked. Like he kind of got taken down a peg or two, which was unexpected because none of our Kashmir Demon guys have ever really had any trouble with anything that they've encountered. So yeah, he's going to have a little meeting with his siblings, and they're going to share some notes about what they've found. So, this one's called Family Meetings, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Dr. Winters sat in the back of Miss Blair's. She had been invited here for a meeting by her brother, the younger one, not the older one, who had run afoul of something quite alarming. When he had called her a few nights ago, he had sounded strange. Her younger brother, the enigmatic Mr. Seraph, had been a swaggering, self-sure figure who had never had any misgivings about the business that he was about. The man who had called her sounded like a whipped cur, and the pain in his voice was clear and uncomfortable. Sister, I need to speak with you. She'd been closing up for the day, keys poised over the lock as she prepared to leave the office, and the sound of his voice stopped her in her tracks. Oh, I hope not. This one's got one of her favorite characters in it. Little brother, what sort of trouble have you gotten yourself into now? I don't have time to get into it now. I know you have the ear of the council, but I have information about these strangers that I want to share with you. I won't go talk to your council or your Sheriff Guthrie, but I will speak to you. You can do what you wish with the information. Meet me at Miss Blair's in 3 days. Take a booth by the back wall, and I'll see you there. He hung up before Winter could ask any more questions, and he refused to answer his phone for the next 3 days. That was how she found herself, sitting here and waiting for answers that she wasn't quite sure that she wanted. The business with the strangers was becoming quite out of hand, and it was bound to come to a head soon. It was only a matter of time before they made their move or managed to get into Kashmir, and Winter wasn't quite sure what they would do when that day came. She looked up as the bell rang over the door, but what she saw wasn't the brother she had been waiting for. The warden of Stragview came uncomfortably into the diner. He never left the prison, hadn't for quite some time at least, but the people of Kashmir certainly seemed to recognize him. Most of them looked away or got very interested in their food, and when he came to sit down across from her, activity resumed around them. He gave her a weak smile, something he rarely did, and looked around as if expecting to see their younger brother coming out of the bathroom. He called you too, didn't he? Oh, that's the wrong voice. He called you too, didn't he? The warden asked. He did. He said he wanted to meet me here. He didn't mention inviting you, however. Funny. He didn't mention inviting you either, the warden returned. That's because if both of you knew I was inviting the other, then you would worry about what I had to say. You both fancy yourself as very cagey and competent, and you're both also very predictable. I wanted to share what I had before I worried you, wanted to prepare you for what might be about to come. He took a seat beside them, checking to make sure that no one was paying too close attention to them before beginning. Shit. Hang on. It cut out my intro there. That sucks. Hang on. I gotta redo that one. He took a seat. Both of them jumped as he just sort of appeared beside them, and he took a seat beside them, checking to make sure that no one was paying too much attention to them before beginning. I have met with the strangers the town is so interested in. There we go. The warden raised an eyebrow at him. Are they as frightful as everyone makes them sound? His tone was sarcastic, but the look on his brother's face spoke volumes. For more than you could imagine, they have something that very few enemies have had before them. They have a means to hurt us. The warden scoffed, and even Winter found it difficult to believe. They had all faced religious persecution before, so-called demon hunters and holy men who felt that they had a one-up on them because of faith. None of them had ever done much more than staying alive, and even that was never a promise. There was no comfortable end for those who tried to fight them. An escape seemed to be the best option for anyone involved. Do they possess some sort of hidden magic? Or do they have some pact with a greater evil? Winter asked, humoring him. You don't honestly believe him, do you? It's outrageous, the warden said, as he crossed his arms over his chest. Are you okay? Hang on just a second, guys. I'll be right back. 2 shakes. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I don't know, there was a drone in the yard or something? I don't know. It got too far away for me to wing with a pellet gun, so I guess it went away. I don't know. Very weird. Anyway, where were we? Try this again. There is nothing on this plane of existence that can harm us. There's very little in the burning hells or the heavens above that can hurt us either. If he was injured, then it was probably due to his own stupidity. Mr. Seraph smiled, but there was no humor in it. Tell my older brother. Tell me, older brother, did I get these wounds due to my own stupidity? He pulled back the sleeve of his shirt to show them the burn scars he had across the length of both arms. The flesh had healed, but it had healed poorly. The skin was still a mass of bubbling tissue that would take weeks to go back to its original form. Winter thought his eye looked a little different as well. His eye appeared to have dilated strangely, and she could see minute blisters on his cornea. Whatever had happened to him, it had been extremely damaging to his vessel. "They did this to you?" Winter asked, as she reached out to touch the wound. Her brother pulled his arm away, reflexively, not wanting to feel anything against his skin. "They did. And if they can do it to me, then they can do it to you. Don't think you're safe just because you might be a little older than me. Whatever they have access to, whatever deals they have made, they can hurt you as well. I don't know if this is a battle we want to involve ourselves in. It might be in our best interest to fall back and weigh our options." Both of his siblings were shaking their heads at him before he could finish. "This is my town," Dr. Winters said through gritted teeth. "I will not abandon it during what might be the biggest disaster in its entire history. The prison is my hunting ground. I will not walk away from such a juicy target just because some fanatics have managed to give you a little sunburn. If it comes to a fight, I will fight with the town. It's your choice whether you fight with us, brother. You have been here the least amount of time. You have the least amount of loyalty to this place. No one would hold it against you if you chose to walk away. None of us are staying." Yeah, we're going to talk. "The two of us are staying. We've tethered ourselves to this place, and we won't give it up just because a bunch of nuts say they want it more." Mr. Seraph looked at the two of them like they might have gone insane. He loved the town. It was a place he wished he had found years ago, but he wasn't going to die for it. The people here had treated him right, and the town had welcomed him after his sister had vouched for his reputation. But he would not die here. On the other hand, where else did he have to go? He was still being pursued by the Laughing Shadows, and it was a toss-up which one of them scared him more. Both of them could probably hurt him. Both of them could definitely hurt the people that he associated with. And if the three of them were here, then there was definitely safety in numbers. He shook his head, feeling foolish, but seeing very few other options. "Then I suppose I will stay as well. I mostly wanted to let you know that they could hurt us. Whether or not it will come to battle, I don't know. But at least in my line of work, I have found that knowledge is power, and this knowledge is some that I would like to share." Dr. Winters reached across the table and took his hand. "You've changed much since the last time I saw you, little brother. I believe this town has been a good influence on you. I think maybe if we make it through these trying times, you could find a permanent place in Kashmir. I think your young ward has already found a place here, and maybe it's time you finally settle down. Stop running. Take some time to live a little." Mr. Seraph smiled and squeezed his sister's hand back. "You know me, sis. I'm never want to stay anywhere too long. Eventually, I will leave again, but this town is one of the better places I've ever found myself in. I certainly wouldn't mind defending it from people who want to change it so fundamentally." "Well, now that that's been settled," the warden said, "I must be getting back to business. When the time comes, I hope we'll see you beside us, defending this strange little town. Until then, be well and be safe. I trust I will see both of you on Monday for more work in the under-prison. The two of you have made great strides in cleaning it out, and I think we might be very close to closing it entirely." The two of them agreed and said that they would meet him on Monday. Then the three of them got up and left together, going their separate ways once they had exited the diner. Winter had left money on the table, as had both her brothers, and it seemed only fitting if they were going to use the diner as a meeting place, they should pay the poor owner for her time and for taking up some of her valuable real estate. In Kashmir, it was always best to remember that the townspeople were more than just props. And there you go. That is your Kashmir story for the week. Ugh, excuse me. Let's see. I think we will move on to our botanical garden story this week, as we learn a little bit more about Sam and his strange teacher. As some of you will remember, Queen Titania sent a teacher for Sam, Aurelius Vanderhorn, who was going to teach him swordplay and tactics and court stuff. Sam is also a little worried that Aurelius might be Titania's bagman, so maybe if he's not impressed with them, it could be very bad for all of them. So he's a little bit tense, but, maybe he'll be able to work it out. But this story is called Spring Training, and we're going to go right on into it. Before Leia falls asleep, yes. Give me a second. Got to make sure I can get my... Aurelius Vanderhorn has a very particular voice, and I've just got to make sure that my mouth can do it before I commit to the role. He's kind of like a Connery, sort of. These allergies are killing me. One allergy pill today was apparently not enough. Hi. Yeah, okay. I think I've got the voice down. Let me make sure we can roll through here. Hi. My sword swept up to meet his, and the ring of steel as high... I'll try that again. Like a hitman, like a blackstaff, like a wetworks man, her personal assassin. Hi. My sword swept up to meet his, and the ring of steel was high and sweet. Lo! His blade swung low, and I slid mine down to catch it. High, low, high. Up, down, and then up again, my sword finding the rhythm easily. Low, low, mid. I hit 2 downswings and followed it with a parry before he could stab me in the guts. We had been going at it like this for nearly an hour, and super fairy summer night strength aside, I was starting to get winded. My arms burned from the effort of swinging my heavy sword, and my sweat pooling in my armor was beginning to get uncomfortable. It wasn't terribly humid for a spring day, but being sweaty in plate mail is never a lot of fun. Oh my god. Fairy soup here. When he slid the sword into its sheath on his back, I breathed an audible sigh of relief. You've improved greatly, my boy, but you still have a long way to go before you're ready for a fairy coup or an attack by frost giants or some such thing. I gave him a bow, which he returned, and the two of us decided to head out for the showers. I've been training with Mr. Vanderhorn for the better part of 2 months, and I'd definitely seen an improvement. At the start, my arms had shaken after 10 to 20 minutes of constant swinging, let alone combat. Now, I could fight for almost an hour, as long as it wasn't too strenuous. I felt more comfortable in my armor, and I felt as if I might be able to stand against a threat that came my weighties. Lost my train and tried to get it back, but it didn't work. And I felt as if I might be able to stand against the threat that came against my lady now. All in all, I had made such a big... All in all, it was... God, I can't read today. All in all, I was in the best shape of my life, and despite my complaints, I was glad that Mr. Vanderhorn had made such a big deal about cardio and running. I was lean and combat ready, but I still had a long way to go. Mr. Vanderhorn had started with morning and evening exercise. We would warm up, do some stretches and light aerobic exercises that you would... Sorry, guys, these allergies are whipping my ass. Nose feels like it's full of concrete. That would look right at home in any middle or high school gym. At first, he had told me not to wear my armor because the chances of getting cut were very slim. "We won't be fighting with that," he said when I'd shown up with my sword. "Wouldn't be fair, and I want you to get used to swinging something that you're not likely to hurt yourself with. Starting off, we'll be using these." He'd thrown me a plastic sword that was as close to the weight of my actual broadsword as I'd ever felt. The edge was dull, but that hadn't stopped him from swinging it at me like he intended to beat me to death. My first couple of weeks had been filled with bruises and sore limbs as I tried to match his strength and speed. Mr. Vanderhorn did not believe in taking it easy on his pupils, and I had to do my rounds more than once with ace bandages around my ankles after some pretty nasty hits. "Your opponent isn't going to pull his punches. The only thing your opponent is going to be worried about punching is your ticket, boy. Don't get used to anyone holding back. And in combat, the strongest warrior wins, and the second-place runner-up is usually pushed into a shallow grave as his mantle travels to the next worthy vessel." That was only part of his training. Mr. Vanderhorn likes to hold sudden and very surprising rounds of training. He would catch me in places without guests, places that visitors were unlikely to see us, and he would randomly attack me. At first, he had used a wooden training sword against my broadsword. I went armed, no matter where I was, but the first time he had brought that wooden sword crashing down against my shoulder, I'd thought I might pass out. Ugh. I had thought I might pass out. If it hadn't been for my Fey armor, as well as the slight dip that I had made when I finally noticed him barreling towards me, he would have probably dislocated my shoulder. We'd had a short but ferocious back and forth, which had ended with me on my back as he put the wooden tip of the sword against my throat. "A summer night should always be prepared for battle, period. The forces of winter do not care what time of day it is. Early morning, late afternoon, even dead of night, they will attack you viciously, and if they find you wanting, you will be dead. I've seen several knights into the ground already, and I do not want to see you go before your time." After that, I moved around in a constant state of awareness. It led to some close calls. I nearly cut some of my friends in half, and the Barker had to duck a particularly nasty swipe when he surprised me outside the greenhouse. But the next time that wooden sword came swinging towards me, I was ready. Eventually, he said we were done with the wooden swords, and it was metal on metal after that. I'd never been in bad shape, but training against Mr. Vanderhorn made me realize that I'd gotten very relaxed in my training schedule. I had never really been trained with a sword, believe it or not, Swordplay was not something my parents thought I needed to study as an after-school activity. He taught me form, he taught me how to measure my strikes so that I wouldn't waste any energy, and above all, he taught me strategy. Oftentimes, boy, the greatest weapon is the one inside your mind. Aside from swordplay, Mr. Vanderhorn also taught me battlefield strategy. He'd been leading the summer court into combat before I'd even been born, and his grasp of tactics and mixed units combat would have made MacArthur jealous. He had an expert eye for where things should be so that they could be best utilized. And after a while, he managed to convey some of that to me. The summer court has not advanced its fighting tactics since the Bronze Age. We've engaged in combat. No, when we engage in combat. When engaged in combat, they still use archers, they still use cavalry, they still use footmen to do most of their dirty work. There's no need to learn how planes operate in a combat situation, or tanks or guns, or other modern things that the military takes for granted. As for the summer court, as far as the summer court is concerned, it's still the Middle Ages, and a cavalry charge is just as effective now as it was in the time of Henry VIII. As impressive as he was at swordsmanship, he was equally as impressive in a court setting. The lady had been sending him with me whenever I had to fulfill my court duties, and he was as adept at heraldry as he was at gossip. All of them knew him. He was as well known in the court as any of the royalty, and even those he claimed did not like him were careful not to be discourteous to him. That one there, the one with the weasel's eyes and the wispy chin beard, is Baron Stephen McAllister. God only knows what he's the Baron of, but he does paltry things for Queen Titania, so he proceeds. His presence is endured. That over there is Lady Brandybuck. She's been a lady of the court since Christ was a kitten, and she's well liked by the Queen. If she asks you to dance, for God's sakes, dance with her. Just watch your feet. She's got 3 left feet, and not a one of them can keep a rhythm. That over there is Lord and Lady Waverley, 2 of the lady's retainers from the Wizard Council. Ugh, voice is tough on the pipes there. The wizards have a council? I had asked, not quite sure what else to say. My boy, these days everyone has a council or a guild or some damn thing. When you're dealing with the Fae, it's best to remember that there's safety in numbers. Not everyone has a mantle to hide under or powerful friends within the Fae court. Some of them have to get by off charisma or a collection of power that would make them unruly if they chose to be. Fortunately, the Waverleys are only here to inform the council about the comings and goings of the summer court. Do they have counterparts in the winter court? I asked as I took a drink from a nearby tray. Vanderhorn laughed as he grabbed one up for himself, making the glasses shiver a little as he bumped them delicately. Son, no one much trucks with the winter court, if they can help it. Most of the wizards who do business with them are a little seedier than the Waverleys. I'm sure that Queen Mab has her loyal retinue, but most of the creatures and people who serve her have a wintry look about them. Oh, well, we'll see you later, Leia. I'm glad you could make it, though. I didn't have to ask what he meant by that. I dealt with enough of the winter court to know that many of them had a lean and hungry disposition. Their eyes moved around a little too quickly, and they speculated a bit too much without saying a word. Their hands hovered a little too close to weapons, and many of them had a blunt and not altogether pleasant way about them. That wasn't to say they couldn't be charming. That was not to say they could not be funny or endearing, but many of them seemed to be trying to decide where to put the knife or when to call in their blackmail. The summer court wasn't much better. Most of them would smile to your face while they stabbed you in the back, but the longer I spent in the company of the Fey folk, the more I got used to it. I had enjoyed my time with Mr. Vanderhorn, but I was always very careful to keep my eyes peeled as well. Mr. Vanderhorn, though very human from what I had been told, was also of the Fey world. If he were here to report on us to Queen Titania, then I would need to impress him and also be very careful what I told him. If his reports made the Queen of Earth and Life decide we were not worth the effort, then Vanderhorn would likely be the one to swing the sword. He was warm and likable, but he could just as easily be my death. "How much longer do I need to train before I'm as good as you?" I asked him as we headed for the greenhouse to get cleaned up. Horalius Vanderhorn laughed, and it sounded deep and genuine as it shook his body. "Boy, you could train until you're as old as I am, and I'm not sure you would ever be that good. I've been conditioned and forged in the fires of battle since I was 13 years old. I've been in combat since the time you were ready to start high school. War and bloodshed and swordplay are as integral to my life as breathing. You're good. You show great promise, but do not strive to be as good as me. I'll tell you, if I had to do it again, I would honestly wish to be a little less formidable than I am." "Why? Surely in our line of work it's better to be formidable. How else would you have survived in the winter court this long if your sword arm was not deadly?" He got a very far-away look, a look that told me he was thinking about times that had gone by, and he seemed to hunch a little more, as if looking for his cane. "Son, in a lot of ways I'm envious of you. You had a life before the summer court. You had friends, a family, a chance to do something other than be a weapon for a fairy queen. The last time I saw my mother, she was handing me to a member of the order before taking her payment and leaving. I was nothing to her but an extra mouth to feed, and she was honestly not at all sad to be rid of the burden. You have people who love you, people who respect you, but you also have a connection to the world that I've never had. Be happy for that, and enjoy it while it lasts." He excused himself when we got to the greenhouse, and I was left to think about that last comment before going to shower off and find some clean clothes. Perhaps it wasn't as great to be Aurelius Vanderhorn as I had thought. There you go. There is your Friday story. Ugh. I can already tell I'm going to have to work on my Connery a little bit there. That was definitely rough. That was a little more Humphrey Bogart than I would have liked, but we do get by, I reckon. Let's see. I got 2 short stories, but I'm going to let you guys pick which one you want. Do you want some, I don't want to say sci-fi horror. It's more like, do you want more Outer Limits horror, or do you want more sad horror? Let me know. Let me know what you guys want. I got sad horror, and I got Outer Limits horror. What exactly are you guys in the mood for here? We're going to hear both of them, but, which one do you want to hear first? I like both of them. I think they're both pretty good. But, I'm a little bit biased there. What are we What are we in the mood for, guys? Cast those votes. Nobody? God, got a bunch of lurkers tonight. Oh, hey, Lori. Lori wants some Outer Limits horror. Anybody thinking some Outer Limits horror? What are you feeling like, guys? Like I said, we're going to get both of them. I just want to know which one you want first. I got 2 for Outer Limits horror. Can I get 3? Can we get 3? It's looking like we're going to do some Outer Limits horror, honestly. But we'll, Oh, no, we're tied up now. Who's going to break that tie? Who's going to break the tie? What do we got? Who's going to bring number 3 here? There's only 8 of you guys. So I feel like if we can get at least 3, then, like, you know, we'll have at least a small consensus there. You can vote if you want, Blondie. I know you've already read both of them, but you can vote if you want. Yeah, I see that. I need to figure out how that works. I need to figure out how a lot of these things work. Okay, I guess we'll do sad first then. Sad first, then Outer Limitsy horror. Let's see. Okay, so our sad horror selection is called The Bastard. So we'll go ahead and read that one first. Then we'll go on to Experiment 84, which is our more kind of Outer Limitsy sort of horror. I don't know. I don't know if I'd classify it as Outer Limits horror, really. It's like just... It's more like invasive horror, I guess. I don't know. Blondie, what would you call it? Let me know. But, alright, so we're going to read The Bastard, and I hope you guys like it. For most of my life, I believed my father hated me. I was the oldest of 7, but I was always the bastard. My father and mother met in high school. She was 16, and he was 17. They fell hard for each other, and they were each other's everything for 2 years. He went to her graduation. She went to his. He got a scholarship to a prestigious college in the Midwest, a top-of-the-line business college, but my mother got pregnant. They had certainly been spending enough time together that wasn't a surprise, but when my grandparents brought up marriage, my father quietly disappeared. He never said why, but he was suddenly gone. No note, no explanation, certainly no proposal. My mother tried to reach him for years, but he ignored her. He was studying business, which was all his parents would say. He was busy. He was doing something with his life, and none of them would ruin that for him. He was going to be successful. He was going to be just like his brothers, and no small-town girl with a bastard in her belly was going to stop that. Hey, El Augusto, we're glad you could make it. I knew of my father, but I didn't even meet him until after my mom passed. Mom never quite got over Dad. She tried for my sake, but she was always so sad. That's mostly what I remember about her. Her looking out the window as if she expected to see somebody, or checking the faces in a crowd as if she thought someone might be there waiting for her. I think she looked for him everywhere, just expecting him to show up one day. She was a great mom. She worked so hard that I got most of the things I wanted, and she still managed to spend enough time with me that I never felt neglected. There were times when it was hard, but I remember the good times more than the bad. Then, one day when I came home from school, I found her on the floor of the living room. She'd killed herself, shot herself in the head. And that was how I met my dad. My grandparents were too old to take me in. My grandma had just been put in a nursing home, and Grandpa wasn't in good enough health to manage a 12-year-old boy on his own. I didn't have any aunts and uncles. My mom had been an only child. So they tracked down my father and gave him a call. That's how I met him, there in the police station, as I sat wondering what my life would look like without the only parent I had ever known. He looked like me, tall, sandy-haired, with blue eyes behind a pair of gold glasses. He could have almost been me 20 years from right then. And when he saw me, I saw something in his eyes that made me think I might have found a new home. He looked at me for a moment, and I saw a sense of pride and wonder in what he saw. It wasn't an expression that I would ever see again. My dad agreed to let me live with him, agreed to take care of me, but he wouldn't look at me the whole time. He talked to the police, he talked to the social worker, but never once did he say my name or speak to me directly. He signed some papers, talked to a few more people, and then put me in the back of his car and took me home. He didn't speak the whole way. The drive was very quiet, and when he turned down a side road, that's when we came out onto a 50-acre estate with a small mansion on it. His parents had been correct. My dad had done very well for himself in the 12 years since he had last seen my mother. My father was some kind of investment banker. He did a lot of things with people's money, did a lot of things for people looking to make more money. And these things were lucrative because he never wanted for anything. His new role... His new wife, a rather unhappy-looking woman named Sandra, greeted me, but I could already tell that she thought I might be competition for the 2 children that she and my father had already had. I had a brother and a sister who were both 2 or 3 years younger than me. They looked at me like I was dirt, like I was trash, and it was an expression that I would get used to pretty quickly. Dad told me I could put my stuff in a room that looked more like a broom closet. Wasn't very big, barely big enough to fit a single bed into. And after he told me to settle in, he left. It was probably the last time he ever spoke directly to me. Dad was out of the house a lot. Most of what I remember about my childhood is Sandra ordering me around. I wasn't a stepson or an adopted son to her. I was little better than a servant. If she needed something, she would call and tell me to fetch it for her. If one of her kids made a mess, it was my job to clean it up. If she didn't like what I was doing, she would hit me on the shoulder or on the side of the head. She yelled at me a lot, and I came to understand when it was safe to be in the same room with her and when it was best to be invisible. My father was rarely home, and usually only on the weekends. Ugh. My father was really only home on the weekends, but if he felt any sort of way about how I was being treated, he never said anything. Essentially, I was a ghost, and everyone seemed to take advantage of my presence. My father had a large family, 6 children in all, and I was everybody's personal servant from time. Yeah. Sorry, guys, I'm having some trouble here. Bear with me here. My father had a large family, 6 children in all, and I was everyone's personal servant from time to time. This was far from voluntary, and I was usually facilitated by my stepmother. If someone needed a playmate, if someone needed a maid to clean up after them, if someone needed something cooked or something carried, it became my job. First, I thought my father resented me, maybe even hated me, but after a while, I realized that was too impressive a term. My father did not despise me. He barely even noticed me. He seemed to go out of his way not to see me. I was more than happy to return the favor. One person in the house, however, did seem to notice me, though he wasn't there all the time. No one else seemed to see him, and they always looked at me oddly when I brought him up. He was an older man, maybe 50 or 60, and he seemed to favor suits and dinner jackets. Sometimes I would catch sight of him out of the corner of my eye, or turn and find him looking at me strangely, and I would nod at him and move along. He would cock his head at me, like a dog hearing a sound, and then he would be gone the next time I glanced his way. It was as if he couldn't see me properly, or maybe that he couldn't understand me. I think sometimes he would linger in the corner of my room as well, but he never spoke to me. He never tried to touch me or anything. I remember telling my stepmother about him once, and then reeling as she slapped me and told me to stop making up stories before I scared my siblings. "Bastard should be seen and not heard," she had growled. It's usually what they called me. Whenever they spoke to me, they never used my name. Whenever they talked to me or about me, they always called me the bastard. All except my father, who didn't talk to me at all. I existed like that for the next 15 years, but even then, there were signs that not everything was as it seemed. My father had a strange nighttime ritual, something I don't know if he was aware of, or at least not aware that I knew about. Sometimes I'd wake up and find him watching me from the doorway of my room. He was just standing there, not saying anything, but watching me, like someone might watch a bird that they find very interesting. I never mentioned it, and neither did he, but it was the only time I saw him look anything but unimpressed or disinterested in me. It was like, at night, his mask would slip a little, and he would come to look at me not as a bird, but as a person. My stepmother never looked at me with anything but distaste, and I never got anything from her but anger or simple cruelty. When I was 18, a month before I graduated high school, I informed my father that I was moving out. I had been accepted to a small college 2 states away. It was something I'd done on my own. It was something I had done without help and with a combination of scholarships and small grants. But I had achieved a small bit of independence, and I meant to escape my father's house. He didn't say anything to me. He simply nodded from behind his newspaper and went back to reading. My stepmother said how nice it would be to have the room back, and that I should thank them for their hospitality over the last 7 years. I didn't say anything to her. I just looked at my father, expecting more, and getting nothing. Finally, I returned to my tiny room, a room that had gotten even smaller as I grew up, but he came to see me that night, after I was asleep. The door opened, a little harder than it usually did, and as I peered at him from behind my eyelids, I realized that my father had been drinking. Drinking wasn't something he did often. Bourbon at a party, champagne at a feast, maybe. That's not, I can't even fucking talk. Champagne for a toast, maybe, but tonight he was red-faced, and he looked more disorganized than I'd ever seen him. His hair was a mess, his shirt had stains on it, and he looked distinctly rumpled, more disorganized than he ever had. He slid down the wall, coming to rest about 10 feet from me, as we sat eye to eye, and when he began to cry, I felt incredibly voyeuristic as I continued pretending to sleep. I'm sorry, son. You deserve better than me. One day, you'll understand why I had to do this, why I had to treat you this way. I just wanted you to know I was proud of you. I'm proud of the man you've become, but I can't show it. I can't let anyone see me. Be proud of yourself. You've accomplished so much. He looked around then like someone might be watching him. I can't let them see me love you. Otherwise, it would unmake everything. Just know how I feel and never say anything about it to anyone. I know you'll make me proud. I know you'll do great things. He cried for a few more minutes, sobbing quietly as I tried to stay as still as I could. Then he left. Just got up and left. And I lay there pondering what he had said until I finally drifted off. No one came to my graduation, but I hadn't expected they would. After graduation, while my friends were out celebrating with their families, I packed a few things I valued and left for college. I stayed with friends who were also attending the same school until it was time for the fall semester. Then I moved my things into the dorm room, and the space felt like mine for the first time. My first 4 years of college were rough. I was studying business, but I was also studying a little bit of engineering. I'd always had an interest in machines and engines and things, and eventually I transferred over so that I was majoring in engineering and minoring in business. I was finally doing something I loved, doing something that made me happy. But I guess they couldn't stay gone for long. Hang on, gotta separate these envelopes. I was working on my master's degree, about 7 years into my college course, when I got the letter. It was short, but I recognized my stepmother's handwriting. Your father has passed. Don't come to the funeral. There's nothing for you in his will. That's weird. That was it. Just 3 sentences. And it hit me harder than I had thought it would. My father and I had never been loving, never even been particularly close, but just knowing that both my parents were dead made me feel alone in a way that I never had. My friends came together for me. They took me down to drown my sorrows, but honestly, I was relieved. It would be a relief not to think that I had to go back and perform for them. It would be a relief not to think that I would have to attend some sort of ceremony for them. I was done with the family, for better or worse, and if I cried during those times, it was only because I felt a major burden lift from me. I'd expected to hear from my father's lawyer about maybe signing some things to clear up my father's estate. I didn't expect to be contacted by a detective who was asking about my alibi. His name was Detective Rayner, and he was looking for the person who had killed my stepmother and my 6 siblings. They'd gathered at your father's house for a party, a memorial after his funeral, and when the maids came in the next day, they were all dead. Hey, Lou, we're glad you could make it. He didn't believe I had done it. He was just checking off boxes. He didn't want to give me the gory details, but I got them in the end. No one seemed to want to tell me what had happened, and I had to dig pretty hard to get the story. But once I had it, the details didn't help much. All of them had suddenly and unexplainedly died. They had been alive at 11:55 p.m. and dead by 11:56. No one knew how, no one knew why, but everyone connected with my dad had suddenly and unexpectedly died before midnight on the day of his funeral. Then, a week later, I got a call from my dad's lawyer asking me to come to his office. As we sat across from each other in the neat office, he told me how I stood to inherit my dad's estate, as well as the estates of my parental grandparents. Why? I asked him, as surprised as I was the day my family had died. My dad never cared a lick for me. I've always been the black sheep, the bastard, and no one ever let me forget it. Mr. Williams, the man who had handled my father's legal matters since I was little, excuse me. Mr. Williams, the man who handled my father's legal matters since I was little, just shook his head as he handed me a manila folder. Everything will be explained in there. Congratulations, Mr. Rafus. It seems your father loved you more than you thought. He left me to read over my father's last message to his forgotten son, and it changed everything and nothing. Son, I expect you have questions, and I'd love to answer them, but I fear I may be beyond talking at this point. I loved your mother dearly. She was the love of my life, and it nearly killed me. I wanted to go back for her. I wanted to marry your mother and be a part of your life, but something happened to me before I went to college. Something that changed everything. I was 18, getting ready to leave, and that's when I met him. He frequented the coffee shop I went to during finals, and we struck up a friendship of sorts. He was charming, he was brilliant, and one night he said he wanted to make a deal. He would make me successful, wealthy, lucky in whatever I undertook, and all it would cost me were the things I loved. I laughed, thinking he was joking, but he assured me that it wouldn't be right away. He would wait until I was gone, until my bones had been interred in the ground. Then he would take his payment. I still didn't believe him, but I shook his hand and told him he had a deal. After that, I got accepted to my dream school. My grants and scholarships came through, and everything I wanted seemed to fall into place. After that, however, I saw the man everywhere. He would smile at me when he saw me noticing him, and then he would wink, put his finger to his lips before simply melting into the crowd. That's when I knew I'd agreed to something very dangerous, and that I needed to protect you and your mother. For most of my life, I've treated my deals with this man like a very complicated game of chess. I put as much distance between myself and you and your mother as I possibly could. I'm married to a woman who I do not love, but who I knew would be the sort of woman that a man like me would be expected to love. I had children whom I openly praised, but secretly I knew were spoiled and arrogant. I lived the sort of life that I knew people would expect, while still putting away my wealth in secret places for later. Your stepmother would have spent all my money if she'd known how much of it we had, but I managed to hide the majority of it so it would be untouchable by anyone except me, and eventually you. Something my mysterious benefactor did not understand, something he would never understand, was that appearances are not always what they seem. I hid my treasures away, just as I did my money, knowing that when the time was right, I could build something for you that would last longer than I would. The problem was that your mother threw me for a loop, as she so often does. It's not fair to say, but her dying was the last thing I had expected. Then I saw you that day in the police station, this boy who looked so much like me when I was your age. For a moment, I almost slipped up. For a moment, I almost ran to you and pulled you to my chest and told you how sorry I was for sending you away. I wanted to tell you how much you meant to me, how much following your success and your schoolwork through various channels had meant to me. But I knew that I couldn't. If that man guessed what your triumph meant to me, you would have died like the rest. So I had to hide you away. I had to ignore you. I had to play a very real game of hide and seek with my love for you. I had to pretend that I didn't care and that you were a burden, that you were nothing but an unwanted child to me. I could do nothing openly for you, but know that I hurt for you. Hang on. Every time they called you a bastard, every time they called you unwanted, every time they ordered you around like a servant, my heart bled. Sometimes I would go into your room at night and look at you, and I would feel shame for my cowardice. I would go into the office and weep afterwards. The night of your graduation, I got so drunk that I very nearly ruined everything. I decided to go and tell you how I felt about you, and damn the consequences. I'd tell you how proud I was, tell you you were my favorite son, the most like me in every way. But when I got there, I saw you sleeping in your tiny room, and I lost my nerve. I couldn't watch you die, even if it was from the hereafter. I will assume by now that your stepmother is dead, as well as her children. I will assume that your uncles and your aunts are also likely dead. These were the people that I outwardly professed to love. These were the people who were told daily how much they meant to me and how much I appreciated and valued them. These were my sacrifice. These were my payment to that man who gave me so much, but also took so much from me. If they're gone, I've instructed my lawyer to give you this letter. Everything belongs to you. Everything that is mine is yours. And, yeah. Anyway. Let's try that again. Everything that is mine is yours. Everything. Take it back from that one, I guess. Everything belongs to you. Everything that is mine is now yours, as it should have always been. Tell no one of this letter. Burn it after you read it, if you want to be absolutely safe. But just know that I've always been proud of you. I've always valued you. And I've always loved you. Be safe, and take the truth with you. Dad. I sat in the lawyer's office for a very long time before I crumpled up the letter, set it on fire with the lighter on his desk, and tossed it into the garbage can. It burned down to ashes and had begun to catch the surrounding papers before I dumped a pitcher of water over it and left. I signed some papers, shook some hands, and returned to my dorm room to figure out what to do next. I now own a large estate, a house with more rooms than I could ever need, and a bank account with quite a few more zeros than I'm used to. I don't know what to make of all this. It completely changes the way I think about my dad, and also it changes it very little. I know he claims to have done all this for me. He claims to have secretly loved me while trying to keep me safe from this whatever it was that haunted him, but it honestly just makes me feel sorry for him. He lived a lie for his whole life, playing a game of chess that only two people ever really knew about. And for what? In the end, he was really just a sad man who was trying to cheat a system only he knew about. I don't know what to believe anymore, but what I do know is this. I think I'd rather go on believing my dad was a callous jerk than believe he was mixed up in something beyond my understanding. I think in the end of the day, Try that again. I think, at the end of the day, I'd rather let the information burn with his last and only message to me. There you go. That is The Bastard. And we'll move on to our last story, which is Experiment 84. I don't know what I would classify that. It's another one of those sad horror stories that seems to resonate with people sometimes. I know you guys like a little sad horror, but that one was definitely an oofer there. Alrighty. Let's get this one in the bag so I can go rest my voice for next time. But this is called Experiment 84, and I hope you guys like it. I'm a janitor for a medical facility that doubles as a government research center. It's pretty thankless work. You clean up regular stuff, bathrooms, cafeterias, things like that, but then you also have to put on your hazmat suit and clean up chemical spills and biohazard stuff. I had to take a 6-month course to be able to clean up everything that might potentially spill in the lab. Do you think the scientists suit up and help me? Of course they don't. They expect you to bring your mops and your brushes and whatever else you need to clean up the mess that they've made. Most of them are pompous assholes, but it pays the bills, I suppose, and that's something. Excuse me. If I wasn't cleaning up after them, then I was constantly being belittled by them. Some of them ignore me, and that was honestly kinder than what I usually have to endure. People in the scientific community see someone cleaning up after them and just sort of think they're better than them. They would talk about me like I wasn't there, talk about me like I was an inferior, and constantly ask each other why I was allowed to be there at all. I ask myself the same question. Why don't they clean up after themselves? If they're so smart, surely they can figure out how to use a broom and a dustpan and a mop, right? I've been picking up for them for about 3 years, and honestly, I have to make myself come to work 90% of the time. I was cleaning an office a few nights ago when I saw a can of soda sitting on the corner of a desk. It's just a regular can of soda, can of Coke that was unopened, with condensation still sliding down the side of it. Now, I wasn't allowed to take things out of people's offices, not even when they leave those candy trays out for guests to sample. I knew that. I knew that I wasn't supposed to touch it, but I did sometimes. The thing about these guys is that they think they're so smart, but they're extremely absent-minded. I never took anything they would actually miss. I never stole anything out of people's desks. I never took anyone's expensive electronics. I never took files off of anyone's computer that they forgot to close out. But I would help myself to little items from time to time. Sodas, food, sometimes pens, if they looked cheap. Little things that they wouldn't miss until it was already too late. I'm not a thief, not really, but the way they talk about me, taking small objects, felt a little bit like their comeuppance. That day, I was pretty tired as well. I'd been working for about 10.5 hours because one of my co-workers decided he needed a day off, and today was that day. I had another hour and a half ahead of me, and it... Again. I had another hour and a half ahead of me, and I wasn't about to spend it being thirsty and uncomfortable. My hands shook a little as I reached for the can. I knew I wasn't supposed to. I knew I could get in big trouble, but I didn't care. I took the Coke. I popped the top. I drank it down before throwing it into my cart. I didn't look around. I didn't draw attention to myself. I just tossed it into the garbage can, attached to my cart, and rolled on. I went home a few hours later, feeling strangely refreshed and a little hopeful for the next day. The next day I was cleaning offices in the same area when I came across another can of Coke. It was almost in the same spot on the desk, and it looked as if someone had pulled it out of the cooler. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed it up, drank it down, and tossed the can as I went back to work. I was cleaning the office, taking out the trash, vacuuming the floor, when I suddenly noticed a math problem on the whiteboard. It wasn't anything I was really familiar with. I never made it past geometry in school, but as I vacuumed the carpet, I found my eyes tracking up to it again and again. The more I looked at it, the more I understood the problem. I found that I actually knew the answer. Before I could stop myself, I grabbed up the marker and worked it out right there. I don't know how, as I said, I've never been great at math, but when I looked at it after I'd finished, I just knew that it was correct. I put the marker down, thinking about erasing it, and decided to leave it there. And then I went on to the next office. Jeez, Blondie. No one said anything about it, the whiteboard or the Coke, so I figured whoever had written it decided they had solved it and simply forgotten about it. At the next one, the next day, there was a similar setup. A Coke sitting on the edge of the desk, and after drinking it, I noticed there was a puzzle sitting not far from it. It was one of those metal brain teaser puzzles, the kind of things kids usually give up on right away, and adults struggle with for a few hours. I was about to go back to work, but I realized that the answer to it was pretty obvious. I moved the rings around, getting them just right as I lined them up, and I left it solved beside some papers on the desk. Then I threw the can away, cleaned up the office, and went back to work. I think that was the first time I noticed a difference in myself. Usually I watch TV while I eat my breakfast, but as I flipped through the paper the next day, I felt moved to do the crossword in the back. Then I did the junior jumble as well, and when I noticed a Sudoku puzzle, I polished that off as well. On my way to work each day, I usually just let my mind wander or listen to the radio, but today I was putting the numbers together on the mailboxes and determining which ones were prime numbers. My mind felt like it was racing for the first time in my life, and it turned out to be a godsend at work as well. I discovered a better route to take to save myself some time as I cleaned. I figured out exactly how much chemical I would need to put on my cart so that I could clean every office. That way, I wasn't lugging around all that extra weight. I loaded exactly as many toilet papers as I would need, had exactly the right amount of napkins for each bathroom, and didn't think anything of it until I was already started. As I moved between the offices after lights out, I began to look for the can of Coke. My mind had begun searching for it, almost expecting it, and when I found it sitting on a desk, I almost didn't notice the cage. Someone had put a cage. I can't read today. Someone had put a cage around it, and this time they had a little keypad to keep people out of it. Well, that was nothing to me. I took a little of the dust from my cart and rubbed it across the numbers, seeing the fingerprints left behind on each of them. I tried them until I finally got it, and as the cage opened up, I took the Coke and drank it. I had been anxious before I had it, my newfound intelligence seeming to fall into a rat-like desire for its puzzle and its prize. Once the Coke was inside me, though, I felt a lot better. I don't know why I didn't think that was odd at the time, but it was something that would occur to me only in retrospect. For the next 8 nights, I found more cokes and more prizes left behind. I did that. For the next 8 nights, I found more cokes and more puzzles left behind. I solved math problems that would have stumped me any other day of the week. I finished word problems left behind in garbage cans, and then left them on the corner of the desk like trophies. There were more brain teasers and more scientific questions, and I found myself solving them with ease. I don't know why this didn't occur to me as being odd. I had never been one for puzzles or math problems or any of this, but my brain devoured them like so much dinner as I solved them and drank my nightly Coke. I never stopped to think who would be leaving these things for me or why they wanted me to do them. I started to get even more anxious each night before I found the Coke that had been left out for me. It seemed to be later and later on my route every night, and I must have looked like a dope fiend as I slunk through the halls just looking for my nightly treat. On the last night, the 12th night of finding the Cokes, I came into the last office on my round and saw it sitting there, as well as something written on the whiteboard. It was written in an elegant hand, something left by someone who had gone to school for calligraphy or some such thing, and it glared out at me as if daring me to take the Coke before I had solved it. Why is testing so important in scientific theory and application? I looked at the Coke, but something in me told me that I would have to answer the question before I could get it. The Coke was my reward for solving the problem, after all. I couldn't take it beforehand. I wanted to. My hands were itching to take hold of it, but as I picked up the marker and began to write underneath the prompt, I found that my own penmanship had improved. I wrote a short response about testing being important because it was a moral obligation to make certain that scientific principles and theories were correct and morally right. It was the scientists' greatest objective and obstacle. They would need to prove that their theories were not only something that was beneficial for mankind, but also something that would not damage it. I may have waxed on a little longer than I needed to, but I kept getting distracted. There was a weird noise behind a section of the wall to my left. It was as if someone was laughing, but they were trying to hold it in. It had begun as a series of snickers, but then it had evolved into muffled chortles, and then it became full-blown guffaws. As I finished up my answer, the laughter came on in full, and when a section of the wall suddenly became a window, I jumped and nearly dropped my marker. Behind it, 4 men in lab coats, each of them red in the face from laughing, stood there. They were people that I recognized, some of the scientists who had been less than nice to me, but now I seemed to be the subject of their humor. I wondered what they found so funny. I knew that I had been caught doing something I wasn't supposed to do, but really, I'd just been answering a question. They must have left it for me. I understood that it could only be part of some sort of test that they were giving me, but as they left the room and came into the office, they all looked smug and very satisfied with themselves. "Well," said the middle scientist, "go on and drink your Coke. I'd say you've more than answered it. A dissertation like this would have gotten you at least a B- at Caltech." They laughed again, on and on, slapping their knees and braying like donkeys, as I took the Coke and drank it in one swift drink. "Enjoy it," said the one on the other end, "because it's the last one you're going to find unless you decide to buy one out of the break room." I asked him what he meant, and what was so funny. 2 of them put their hands on their knees, laughing like it was the funniest thing they had heard all night, and I thought they might pass out. The one who had spoken first just wiped tears from his eyes, though, as he explained, "We've been leaving the drinks out for you. Conroy said you wouldn't take them, but I had a feeling you were the one that's been taking my pins. I suppose congratulations are in order. You're the first human trial for Compound 84. I felt my hands begin to shake. They had drugged me. They'd used me like a guinea pig for whatever weird new drug they were making. I was angry. Of course I was, but I was also scared. What was it going to do to me? More importantly, what would happen when I stopped taking it? Relax. It won't kill you or anything. The formula was created to boost the cognitive functions in humans. If you don't take it every day, the effects will wear off after 3 days. I'd ask if you felt any different, but I know you have. You solved all those puzzles faster than some of us could. I'd say that for our first human trial, Compound 84 was a rousing success. Enjoy that last taste, buddy, because after today, I'm afraid you'll have to buy it in stores when it comes out like everyone else." Ugh. I was speechless. I couldn't believe I'd been played like this. They'd used me like they would any common lab rat, and I was starting to get angry about it. I told them flatly that I would go to the higher-ups and tell them what they had done. I would go to the newspapers. I would go to the Food and Drug Administration. I would talk to whoever I needed to, so as to make sure they never conducted any sort of tests, medical or otherwise, again. That took some of the starch out of them, but not the one who had done most of the talking. He put his hands in his pockets and just grinned at me. That's a pretty tall order. At least it will be once we tell those higher-ups that you've been stealing. Excuse me. We'll tell them you stole from multiple offices over most of your career. You'll be fired immediately, and it will be discreet, and it will discredit everything that you could possibly tell them about us. Seems like your best bet might be to shut your mouth and just pretend it never happened. Unless you want to be out on your ass and looking for a job. Heck, we could probably spin it so that it sounds like you took something from my office that was unlabeled, just waiting for testing. How's that gonna look? In the end, I let it go. In the end, I lost. As I sit in my bed, I can feel my mind racing. I can also feel it getting slower, and my thoughts getting more scattered. Before long, I'll be right back to the person I was before, and that feels like the greatest loss of all. I suppose, in the end, I was Experiment 84, and the results of it may be more devastating than I could ever imagine. I hate myself for it. I don't like how that one came out. I hate myself for it, but I'll likely be buying the drug when it comes out in stores. It's gonna be hell, knowing what real genius feels like, and having to lose it to the whims of these pretentious lab coats. There you go. That's all I got for you tonight. No, you're fired. Hope you guys enjoyed the stories. Hope we'll see you all again next time. Hopefully I can get my webcam back up and running. If not, I guess we'll just use the banner for the live streams. I don't know what's going on. I'll play around with it in the meantime and see if I can't get it figured out. But, anyway, hopefully catch you guys next time, and we'll see you real soon. Dr. Plague, signing off. You guys have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you all next time.